All right, everybody, stand by. How's everybody doing? We're about to go live. Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the future of radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, December 4th, 2020, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Well, it's been a very busy week, and we survived another week, and it's only 47 more days of this idiotic Donald Trump administration, and January 20th can't come here soon enough. So we are broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. We're also broadcasting on 910 AM Superstation, WFDF's Facebook fan page as well. And you can listen to the show Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time on your AM dial in Detroit, 910 AM, the Superstation WFDF. You can also listen live by downloading the iHeartRadio app to your smartphone. Download the iHeartRadio app, search for 910 AM Superstation. And while you're on iHeartRadio, also visit the African History Network show page on, visit our channel on iHeartRadio as well. You can listen to the podcast of these shows. All right, so there's a lot going on. We see coronavirus is still surging. We see that once again, the U.S. breaks daily coronavirus records for deaths, new cases, and hospitalizations. That was for Thursday, December 3rd. We can give you an update on what's going on with coronavirus. Then we posted a couple of articles here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. On yesterday's show, we talked about December 4th is the anniversary of the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, two members of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. We'll talk about that some more a little bit tonight. We posted an article from News1.com, Fred Hampton's most political and revolutionary quotes. Fred Hampton's most political and revolutionary quotes. We know BlackAmericaWeb.com had a really good article dealing with Fred Hampton also that we talked about a little bit yesterday. So we'll share some more of that article with you today. There was we posted another article from WFAB in Louisville, Kentucky. WHAS, I should say, WHAS Channel 11. And this deals with Grandmaster Jay, John Fitzgerald Johnson, leader of the NFAC. And he's been arrested on federal charges. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, that's a very, very disturbing case, and ask some questions dealing with that case there. And, you know, we've talked about the no freaking around party. They don't use freaking, they use another word. Coalition, I should say, coalition. You know, we've talked about them here on the show before and some of the work they're doing in Louisville, Kentucky, trying to get charges filed when it comes to the police officers who were involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor. And, you know, so this story here dealing with federal charges against Grandmaster Jay, regardless of what you think about him or the organization, what have you, I mean, this just sounds kind of suspect here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then there was a big article from face-to-faceafrica.com that we posted. And this is an article from, I think this is from December 3rd, 2020, face-to-faceafrica.com. This deals with Isaac Wright Jr. Isaac Wright Jr. Now, you may have seen the TV show on ABC called For Life. And it's about an African-American man who was a businessman and had a family and was successful. And then he gets charged with a crime he didn't commit and gets sent to prison and learns the law in prison and helps, becomes an attorney while he's in prison and helps other prisoners, fight for their rights. And he ends up freeing himself from prison. And when I first saw, I hadn't talked about the show a lot of research on the show. When I first saw the show, I'm like, why does the brother have to be in prison? Why does he have to be an attorney in prison? Because when you study, I've been studying media for 28 years. I've been studying media for 28 years. My degree is in business administration with a major in marketing. And when you study marketing, you learn about the media. Okay. And I've studied the history of like African American cinema and all different types of things like that. And oftentimes when we see movies and TV shows portraying African Americans, we see some type of criminality associated with them. Okay, we see oftentimes some type of criminality associated with African Americans. And some of the first lectures that I did going back to 2012 was a series called The Media's Deliberate Destruction of the African American Family. And it deals with the origins of negative stereotypical images of African Americans, things like this. And I did a follow-up presentation in 2000, I think maybe 14, called Empire Strikes Black, the Propaganda of the Media. Empire Strikes Black, the Propaganda of the Media. And, I deal with the origins of negative stereotypical images of African Americans going back to slavery. We look at the origin of the minstrel shows with a man named T.D. Rice, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, W-R-I-C-E, who's known as the father of the minstrel shows. And he's the man who created about 1828, 1829. He created the character of Jim Crow. Okay. And the character of Jim Crow was this was a minstrel character he created. And he performed on stage and he wore tattered, torn clothing, adopted a Southern dialect, trying to imitate and make fun of enslaved African people. And he wore blackface. And the term Jim Crow comes from the song Jim Crow. And it says, turn around, jump around, I jump just so. Every time I turn around, I jump Jim Crow. And we look at and from this, you're going to have other white men who see this and they start to imitate African Americans and dehumanize us and show us as being simpletons and dim-witted. And they're going to, you're going to have these minstrel show companies that become very popular. At one point, they were the most popular form of entertainment, going back to the mid 1800s, late 1800s. You're going to have these minstrel show companies, okay, that travel across the country, South and North, and dehumanize African Americans. Okay, so when we study the history of this country, we see that the dehumanization of African Americans has always been entertainment for this country. And then when we look at, early in the week, we talked about the birthday of Richard Pryor. And when we look at early movies that Richard Pryor was in, we look at early movies that Chris Tucker, comedian Chris Tucker, Eddie Murphy, movies like Trading Places and 48 Hours and things like this. When you see these African-American comedians / actors who become huge, a lot of their early roles, there was some type of criminality associated with their roles. Okay, Chris Tucker, Martin Lawrence, Eddie Murphy, there's some type of criminality associated with their roles. And even when Eddie Murphy in 1984 starred in Beverly Hills Cop, which was like really his breakout role, okay, because like when he was in Trading Places, Dan Aykroyd was the big star. Dan Aykroyd got top billing when Eddie Murphy was in 48 Hours. Nick Nolte got top billing. Well, Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy got top billing. But if you go analyze that movie, and he's a police officer from Detroit, he makes reference to the fact, hey, I was not always a cop. He makes reference to the fact when he was in the streets as a teenager committing crimes. So even though he's in law enforcement, there's still an element of criminality associated with it, right? So I saw some of an episode of For Life on ABC, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, why the brother have to be in prison? I said, why the brother has to be in prison? Why do they have to have criminality associated with them? But when I saw it, and I didn't talk about it publicly because I wanted to do my research, when I saw it, I did not know it was inspired by a true story. Well, the African-American man who the TV show is inspired by, his name is Isaac Wright Jr., and he reversed his wrongful conviction and became an attorney, and he's now running for mayor of New York City. So we posted this article from face-to-faceafrica.com on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. It got like 6,000 likes. It blew me away. I was like, wow, I didn't know it was going to blow up like this. So we're going to talk about that story on today's show. And it's, it's a really good, positive story. I don't know what's going to happen in the mayoral race, but the fact that he educated himself on the law and was able to free himself, that's a positive story. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. We'll talk a little bit about Fred Hampton. And I came across this other article from SmithsonianMag.com, Smithsonian Institute. How the myth of a liberal North erases a long history of white violence. How the myth of a liberal North erases a long history of white violence. Anti-Black racism has terrorized African Americans throughout the nation's history, regardless of where in the country they lived. Anti-Black racism has terrorized African Americans throughout the nation's history, regardless of where in the country they live. Now, you remember Malcolm X, and you see Malcolm behind me. Now, the people, like a lot of times people, whenever we broadcast here from this studio, because normally, if it wasn't for COVID-19, we'd be in the studios at 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF, like we are every Sunday and have been for like 4 years. But because of COVID-19, right, they have us broadcasting from home, which is cool because I have a studio in the home, so I don't have to go too far. The radio station is 20 minutes away from me, but people ask, well, why you have Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali behind you? And if you know me, Malcolm and Muhammad Ali are two of my heroes, right? But I say because Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali are watching my back. So that's why you see that pictures behind me, but that's a whole nother story. Remember Malcolm X used to say, anytime you're south of the Canadian border, you're in the South. Anytime you're south of the Canadian border, you're in the South. And when we deal with the great migration of African Americans migrated from the South up north and out west from 1915 to 1970, and approximately 6 million African Americans migrating out of the South for various reasons. Some are leaving plantations, some are being ran out of the South, some lost their land, some are being ran out of the South. The boll weevil attacking cotton, things like this, the boll weevil beetle. And they're coming up north and they're dealing with white supremacy and terrorism up north. And because we came from a gun culture, we brought our guns with us because we dealt with crazy ass white people down south and we dealt with them up north also. And then you're going to have these racial explosions and these race riots break out. And then World War I basically ends 1918. The next year, 1919 is the Red Summer. You got over 25 major race riots across this country, explosions. During World War II, 1943, you got the big race riot up and down Woodward Avenue here in Detroit. Okay, during World War II, then we have after World War II ends, then you have really white flight starting going back to the late 1940s, around 1949 with the Federal Housing Act, which allows white people to put 3% down on low interest loans and get houses built out in the newly formed suburbs. And then when we try to take advantage of those loans that are being paid for by taxpayer dollars, and we were paying taxes, okay, we're being discriminated against getting these loans and getting houses built out in the suburbs so the houses can appreciate in value and we can accumulate wealth. And then when we try to take advantage of the GI Bill of 1944, signed law by President Franklin Roosevelt, And the GI Bill gave the veterans, the World War II veterans, money to go to college, money to start businesses, and loans to start businesses and loans to buy homes. And we're largely, in various ways, being discriminated against, taking advantage of these rights and of these things that we earned and our taxpayer dollars are paying for, right? And then this whole white flight and this urban renewal leads to the deindustrialization of the inner city. Okay, so when we deal with a lot of this history, we find a continuum and we find a constant thread of white supremacy and racism. And we see African Americans catching hell in the South and up north, and then out west. Okay, we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the future of radio. Calling number 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Okay, everybody, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. I got to get ready for the next segment. This is live radio. This ain't a Facebook show. This is live radio. So just stand by. I got to get ready for the next segment here. How's everybody doing? All right. Our board operator tonight is Mike. And I need to, let me do this here. I need to email Mike this damn clip. Where is, okay, everybody stand by. I got to get ready for this next segment. What the hell is that article? How's everybody doing today? Stand by, everybody. We'll be back from breaking a couple. Stand by. We'll be back from breaking a couple minutes. Mike. Everybody, we'll be back in just a second here. All right, who we have here? We've got Official True. We've got Mai, Yanish, Quincy, Nick, Sherwin. What's up, Sherwin? Y'all be on Roland Martin on Tuesday. He had an all Alpha Phi Alpha members today on his panel because the day was their Founders Day, and I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So, welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Friday, December 4th, 2020, and we are live. We made it through another. Week. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Also, we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network on Facebook, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, okay, on YouTube. All right. So during the break, we were chatting with some people watching us on our social media platforms also. I'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on this coming Tuesday. Normally I'm on Fridays, but he had an all Alpha panel on today since today's the Alpha Phi Alpha is celebrating their founding. This is their Founders Day, so we had an all Alpha panel on. That's why I wasn't on. I got the word late. I got the message late. So Well, I'll be on Tuesday. Okay, so look out for me there. Look out for me then, and we'll share some of the segments here on our show here. Okay, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. And then also we'll give you an update on what's going on with coronavirus as well. So right before the break, I was talking about, Mike, I just sent you an email as well with this clip dealing with Grandmaster Jay. So just cue that up. Let me know when you have that queued up, please. We were talking about this article here from Smithsonian Institute, how the myth of a liberal North erases a long history of white violence. How the myth of a liberal North erases the long history of white violence. And this article is from August 27th. I saw this article when it came out back in late August 2020, August 27, 2020. And then somebody posted it today, and I shared it, and people have been commenting on it. So this article is written by Christy Clark and Annalisa Cox for Smithsonian.com. And it starts out and it says, John Langston was running through a neighborhood in ruins. Burned homes and businesses were still smoking. Their windows shattered. John Langston was only 12 years old, but he was determined to save his brother's lives. He had spent the night in a safe house sheltering from the white mobs that had attacked the city's African-American neighborhood. Sleep must have been difficult that night, especially after a cannon was repeatedly fired. The cannon had been stolen from the federal armory by the white mob alongside guns and bullets, so they could go to war against African Americans. John Langston awoke to worse news. The mayor had ordered all white men in the city to round up any surviving African American men. They found and threw them in jail. As John Langston would later write, quote, swarms of improvised police officers appeared in every quarter, armed with power and commission to arrest every colored man who could be found. Arrest every colored man who could be found, end quote. As soon as John Langston had heard this, he ran out the back door of the safe house to find his brothers to try to warn them. When a group of armed white men saw John Langston, they shouted at him to stop, but he refused, willing to risk everything to save his brothers. There is a toxic myth that encourages white people in the North to see themselves as free from racism and erases African Americans from the pre-Civil War North. Erases African Americans from the pre-Civil War North. Civil War begins April 12, 1861, where they are still being told that they don't belong. Now, what John Langston experienced was not the massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which began June 1st, 1921, or Rosewood, which was January 1923. This was in Cincinnati, Ohio, what John Langston experienced. This was in Cincinnati, Ohio, what John Langston experienced in 1841, 20 years before the Civil War begins. This was the third such racist attack against African Americans in Cincinnati in 12 years. Now, Cincinnati was not alone. Between 1829 and 1841, white Northerners had been rising up against their most successful African American neighbors. White Northerners had been rising up against their most successful African American neighbors, burning and destroying churches, businesses, schools, orphanages, meeting halls, farms, and entire communities. This reminds me of the poster boy of white privilege, Jared Kushner, who owes Deutsche Bank $285 million, who 2 or 3 months ago said that for Donald Trump's policies to work to help African Americans have to want to be successful. The poster boy of white privilege said this. Now, he also needs to call the Jim, James, Paul, and Tyrone Moving Company, call 1-866-CALL-TYRONE, because they have a special promotion, 75% off for people moving from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on January 20th, 2021. Use the promo code DJT, pack your stuff. Okay. He also needs to call the Jim, James, Paul, and Tyrone Moving Company. Now, these were highly organized actions instigated by some of the most wealthy and most educated white citizens in the North. Now, I would ask the question, what are they educated in? You know, they may be doctors and things, attorneys and things like this. They may be white supremacists. I mean, when we look at Francis Scott Key, who September 1814 wrote a poem that became known as the White National Anthem, or what you call the Star Spangled Banner. He was an attorney, but he was also a white supremacist slave owner. And he used his position as district attorney there in Washington, D.C. to fight against abolitionists. There was one abolitionist, I think the abolitionist's name was Reuben Crandall. He tried to have Reuben Crandall executed for distributing abolitionist material. Okay, so you were educated, but educated in what? These were highly organized actions instigated by some of the most wealthy and most educated white citizens in the North. As a white gentleman in the pretty rural village of Canterbury, Connecticut, wrote in 1833, quote, "The colored people can never rise from their mental condition in our country. The colored people can never rise from their mental condition in our country. They ought not be permitted to rise here," end quote. Well, the reason why African Americans may not be able to rise in 1833 from the mental condition is because you keep putting because you are keeping them in that mental condition based upon the conditions, based upon the circumstances, based upon the environment, based upon white supremacy and racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism has nothing to do with not liking people or calling people racial epithets or calling people the N-word or things like that. That's bigotry. What we cannot do is to allow people, whether they're African Americans, whether they're white, Hispanic, or whatever the hell they are, we cannot allow them to obfuscate, distort what racism is, because when it becomes so amorphous and ambivalent, you don't understand what it is, so you don't understand how to attack it. Okay? Stop the clip. Okay. Maybe it's playing here. All right. So this is what we're dealing with. Okay. So this article here deals with that was playing on my end. This article here breaks this down, and this reminds me of a video that I did, a broadcast we did back in 2019, I think it was. And I'm going through and editing a lot of these videos I've done over the past couple of years, and we're going to re-air those on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. That's why you want to make sure you follow us here at the African History Network on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to that clip in just a minute, Mike. I got the text. Thanks. That's why you want to make sure you follow us here on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. And if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, okay, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So that really helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, be able to do this show 6 days a week, because we're here as of October 12th, 2020, we're here 6 days a week as opposed to 1 day a week. It was 1 day a week for 4 years, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're still on Sundays, okay, and we're also here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time, but we usually go over 1 hour and continue on our social media platforms. Today, I think will be one of those days. Like Monica said, just one of them days. But so you can donate to the African History Network, okay? All right. Let's continue, then we're going to go to this other story here. So he wrote this after this was a white gentleman in the pretty rural village of Canterbury, Connecticut, wrote in 1833, quote, "The colored people can never rise from their menial condition, from their, I said mental, I'm sorry. It was menial, okay? But the horror inflicted upon African Americans also creates a mental condition as well, from their menial condition in our country. They ought not be permitted to rise here. They ought not be permitted to rise here." He wrote this letter after white members of his community tried to burn down an elite private academy for African American girls while the students slept inside. He wrote this letter after white members of his community tried to burn down an elite private academy for African American girls while the students slept inside. One of the girls who survived that fire then made the long journey to Canaan, New Hampshire, where a few abolitionists were trying to establish an integrated school called the Noyes, Noyes, Noyes Academy. Canaan was a remote and lovely village, but within months, white locals attacked that school. The white attackers brought in numerous teams of oxen, oxen, attached to a chain they put around the school and pulled it off its foundation, dragging it down the main street of Canaan. In 1834, there were even more riots against African Americans, most notably in New Haven, Connecticut, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and New York City. The mayor of New York allowed the destruction of African American homes and businesses to continue for days before finally calling out the state militia. This violence was not against buildings alone, but was accompanied by atrocities against African Americans, including rape and castration. African Americans in the North bravely continued to call for equality and the ending of slavery, while the highest officials in the land tried to encourage more massacres. As Lacey Ford revealed in his book, Deliver Us from Evil, President Andrew Jackson's Secretary of State, John Forsyth, wrote a letter asking Vice President Martin Van Buren, born and raised a New Yorker, to organize, quote, a little more mob discipline, end quote, adding, quote, the sooner you set the imps to work, the better. Okay, the sooner you set the imps to work, the better. The violence continued. Historian Leonard Richards makes a conservative estimate of at least 46 mobbings in northern cities between 1834 and 1837. At least 46 mobbings or racial attacks, white supremacist attacks, African Americans white people inflicting upon African Americans in northern cities between 1834 and 1837. Okay, read the rest of this article here from SmithsonianMag.com, the official website of the Smithsonian Institute. How the myth of a liberal North erases a long history of white violence. How the myth of a liberal North erases a long history of white violence. Anti-Black racism has terrorized African Americans throughout the nation's history, regardless of where in the country they lived. All right, so check out this article. We'll post the link here. Okay, let's go to this other. I'm going to go to this other story, and then we're going to get to the story of Isaac Wright Jr., who was the inspiration of the TV of ABC's For Life. But Grandmaster Jay, John Fitzgerald Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay, has been arrested on federal charges. WHAS Channel 11 out of the Louisville, Kentucky area reported on this on December 3rd and December 4th. Okay, we posted this article on my personal page and our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The leader of a Black militia group that protested in Louisville, Kentucky, has been arrested and accused of pointing a rifle at officers during a protest on September 4th, 2020. During a protest on September 4th, 2020, he was arrested at his home in Westchester, Ohio, and brought to the Oldham County Jail, Oldham, Oldham County Jail. The Not Freaking Around Coalition, they use a different word than freaking, but this is FCC regulated radio. The leader, John Fitzgerald Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay, has been charged with, hold on just a second here, has been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers after he allegedly aimed an AR platform, like an AR-15 platform rifle, at members of the U.S. Secret Service and Louisville Metro Police Department while they were on the roof of the Jefferson County Grand Jury building. These are the allegations. I don't know whether this is true or not, but in reading this story and researching this, it took 3 months to bring charges. And then they said this is a federal investigation, things like this. It took 3 months. I'm like, why does it take 3 months to bring charges? Let's go to this clip here. This is from WHAS Channel 11 in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. Now people on Facebook and YouTube said they could not hear the clip. I don't know why. I gotta figure this out. I think there's something wrong with the connection running into the laptop. Okay. Check out the article from WHAS Channel 11, WHAS Channel 11, WHAS11.com. NFAC leader arrested on federal charges. Now, according to a criminal complaint, officers were conducting watch over a crowd at Jefferson Square Park that night when they heard 6 to 8 heavily armed people were parked on Armory Place. When the officers went to look down on Armory Place, they were, quote, blinded by a light, which they shortly thereafter determined was a flashlight mounted to the rifle. shortly determined was a flashlight mounted to the rifle, end quote, that allegedly Grandmaster J. John Fitzgerald Johnson pointed. Now, photos provided in the probable cause affidavit show a person pointing a rifle toward the top of a building. The complaint in the article, you see those pictures. Okay, now I don't know who that is pointing the rifle, and I don't know if they're actually pointing it at somebody, but those are the allegations. Now, the complaint also said surveillance footage showed none of the members sought cover after seeing officers on the roof, saying they did not, quote, appear to be alarmed or concerned about their safety, end quote. The FBI interviewed the officers, who all identified the Johnson and the other men as NFAC members. Louisville LMPD, Louisville Metro Police Department advisor Jesse Halladay, Halladay, who met with Johnson shortly after the incident, also identified John Fitzgerald Johnson from surveillance footage. Louisville LMPD Sergeant Aubrey Gregory said he had advised Johnson that law enforcement would be on the rooftops of buildings during correspondence prior to his arrival, both on September 4th and earlier in the year. U.S. Attorney Russell Coleman said, quote, here in Kentucky, we revere our First and Second Amendment freedoms, not foolishness, which puts police and protesters at grave risks. That's a grave risk. That's U.S. Attorney Russell Coleman. Dave Mutchler, Mutchler, the press secretary for the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, said federal investigations are more deliberate, so he's not surprised by the 3-month timeline. But I'm like, how much did you have to investigate? I mean, it took 3 months for this. Quote, the FOP is satisfied, he said, with rights comes responsibilities, and that's pretty obvious. That was an irresponsible action on his part. The FOP is satisfied that the federal government is bringing those charges, end quote. Local advocate and pastor Tim Finley Jr., who you heard in the clip, says the timing is not just. The timing is not just. Tim Finley Jr. is African-American. He said, quote, to use this and to make this move 3 months later speaks of the flawed, ridiculous, racist, unfair policing structure in this city. The flawed, ridiculous, racist, unfair policing structure in this city. Grandmaster Jay is a national figure, so this once again makes Louisville look like the hotspot of racism, end quote. So 57-year-old John Fitzgerald Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay, was arrested and appeared before a federal judge in Louisville, Kentucky on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. The charge has a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. So I posted about this, and then also CNN.com as an article, founder of All Black Armed Activist Group faces federal charge after FBI says he aimed a rifle at officers. Their article was updated December 4th, 2020, and the article from WHAS Channel 11 was December 3rd and updated December 4th. And when we posted this article here, I said, one, it was strange that it took 3 months to bring charges. Okay, one, and I said, now I could be wrong on this, but I said it seems like the authorities were trying to charge him with something, and this is the best that they could do. It seems like, now I could be wrong later. If evidence comes out to show that I'm wrong, then I'll say I'm wrong. But when you have African Americans who organize themselves and take up arms, not to be vigilantes, but to defend their communities, defend the protesters, things like this, and one of those When they had the protests trying to get charges brought against the officers who killed Breonna Taylor, there was an extensive interview that Grandmaster Jay did with one of the local news stations there. We shared that interview. It was a video of the interview. We shared it on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. And I said, everybody needs to see that. I think we played a little bit of it here on our show. And I said, whether you're for or against the organization, and I've told my listeners, research the organization. If you feel that this is something you want to join, then okay, go ahead and join. If you determine, well, hey, I like some things they do, but it's just not for me, then okay, don't join. Okay. I'm not speaking for or against them. So research it yourself. But it was something very powerful to see when they had this protest there in Louisville, and to see the NFAC there, disciplined, armed, protecting the protesters. And also there was a white militia group, or at least one of them, maybe more white militia groups there. They were armed as well. So you got to see these figures here. Okay. Now I've heard some negative things about him. I don't know whether that's true or not. So a lot of stuff I don't repeat. I don't know. Okay. But what I do know is that when you have African-American organizations, whether it's the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, whether it's the Deacons for Defense and Justice, whether it's Robert F. Williams and the Black Guard, when they take up arms to protect themselves and are legally armed, they become a target. They become a threat, okay, for some reason to power, to white supremacy, powers that be, whatever, okay? So, so we'll see what happens with this. Hopefully he has good, excellent legal representation. Check out the article also from CNN.com as well on this story. So we'll stay on top of this. Okay. Now, we posted this article from face-to-faceafrica.com, and it got a huge response. Isaac Wright Jr., who reversed his wrongful conviction and became a lawyer, is running for New York City mayor. Isaac Wright Jr., who reversed his wrongful conviction and became a lawyer, is running for New York City mayor. And this is from, I think this was December 3rd, 2020, from face-to-faceafrica.com. Isaac Wright Jr. was a convicted felon who learned the ropes on the legal system to free himself and became a lawyer in the process. To free himself and became a lawyer in the process. He is the inspiration for ABC's For Life, the TV show For Life that airs on Tuesdays. That airs on ABC. Now, on Tuesday, December 1st, Isaac Wright Jr. announced his candidacy to run for mayor as a Democrat in New York City. In 1991, Isaac Wright Jr. was wrongfully accused of being the main deviser behind a drug conglomerate in the New York and New Jersey area. Subsequently, he was convicted under New Jersey's drug kingpin law. Isaac Wright Jr. served as his own lawyer and was sentenced to life in prison. Now, Wright constructed the legal tactic and formulated a defense pro se brief as a counter to the kingpin jury instruction in the case of State versus Alexander in 1994. This method was instrumental in reversing his conviction. While conducting a cross-examination during his own case, Isaac Wright Jr. was able to extract a confession of police misconduct from a veteran police officer. Let me repeat this. While conducting a cross-examination during his own case, Isaac Wright Jr. was able to extract a confession of police misconduct from a veteran police officer. The veteran police officer's name was James Duggan, or Dugan, Dugan. This is what solidified his freedom. This is what solidified his freedom. Quote, I understood law enforcement in such a way that I was able to get a law enforcement officer, a veteran, to actually come clean and admit fault, even though he was facing prison time. Isaac Wright Jr. told People magazine. Quote, the years of dealing with those issues allowed me to take that experience and individually turn an officer around. I think I could do the same thing with the NYPD there in New York as mayor, the New York Police Department. While he was incarcerated, Isaac Wright Jr. continued to study law and became a prison paralegal. He was instrumental in lowering the sentences and overturning convictions of over 20 inmates. After Wright's release from prison, he pursued law and graduated in 2002 with his undergraduate degree. In 2007, Wright graduated from St. Thomas University School of Law, St. Thomas University School of Law. In 2008, he passed the New Jersey bar examination. Isaac Wright Jr. was granted admission to the bar by the New Jersey Bar's Committee on Character after a 9-year investigation, and he is currently a counselor with one of the biggest Black-owned law firms in Newark, New Jersey, law firm Hunt, Hamlin, and Ridley. According to the firm's website, he focuses on, quote, defending the wrongfully accused and going after corrupt institutions, end quote. Check out the rest of this article from face-to-faceafrica.com. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. We're going to continue this discussion on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. So those watching, keep watching us right now. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll talk to you Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Talk to you Sunday. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Okay. Disconnect from the radio station. Let's continue. We'll be here for a little while longer. All right. So everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. How's everybody doing? We got Jeff, Daryl, Holly, May, Yenish, Willie. And if you like this type of information, also you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. And then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. That allows us to be here 6 days a week as opposed to 1 day a week. It helps to finance the show and finance the research. At our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, all of my DVD lectures are there also. And we have the 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus. The Africans Who Were Here Before Columbus includes a double lecture I did with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, because he's dealing with that subject matter in the lecture. And also a double lecture I did with Professor Kabahai Wapa Kamene. So it's an 8 DVD bundle pack. And then also we have the 6 DVD bundle pack, Black Migration 1619 to 2019, Black Migration 1619 to 2019. Those are on sale right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com at like $45, $50. Okay, if we go back to this article here from face-to-faceafrica.com about Isaac Wright Jr., who reversed his wrongful conviction and became a lawyer and is now running for mayor of New York City. According to the law firm's website that he works at now, Hunt, Hamlin, and Ridley, he focuses on, quote, defending the wrongfully convicted, defending the wrongfully accused, and going after corrupt institutions. Now, he is banking his candidacy for mayor of New York on his experience, which by all standards is different from his counterparts. He did not fully disclose his plans for the city, though he has pledged to, quote, address the racial, economic, environmental, and educational injustices that plague our city's institutions, end quote. He said, I don't consider myself a true activist, adding that the core of his makeup is to fight for what is right. Now, many friends and colleagues had pushed Wright to stand for this very position many years ago. He feels now is the right time because this year, many people have decided not to be silent anymore on issues pertaining to institutional racism and police brutality. However, he believes that that there is more everyone can do aside from the protests, and that is to get into the real fight. He said he is the man to lead that fight for real change. Quote, in my experience in life, nothing good happens most of the time without a fight. You can scream, you can holler, you can protest, which are all good things, but we have to be heard. But no real significant changes occur without rolling up your sleeves and getting into a fight, end quote. All right, so check out that article from face-to-faceafrica.com. We posted it on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. All right, I want to go to this next story here. And at the beginning of the show, I jumped right in. We didn't do our opening. So on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. People are still talking about the interview I did with Kenya K. Stevens of the Juju Mom of the Progressive Love Academy, Sex Talk with Kenya. And she was talking about helping women achieve orgasm and G-spot orgasm, female ejaculation, things like that. So it was a really deep conversation. You can watch it at The African History Network on Facebook. Click on videos, or on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. And I'll be doing another interview with her coming up this coming week in dealing with the winter solstice, okay? All right, so so look out for that as well, okay? All right. Yeah, look out for that also, okay? All right, let's go to this next story here. Also, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show. Olympic decathlon champion Rayford Johnson, who won the decathlon at the 1960 Olympics, passed away at age 86. BlackAmericaWeb.com has an article dealing with this from December 3rd, 2020. December 3rd, 2020. And we posted an article about this also, okay? Just a second here. Rayford Johnson, who won the decathlon at the 1960 Rome Olympics, and helped subdue Robert F. Kennedy's assassin in 1968. Helped subdue Robert F. Kennedy's assassin in 1968. Died Wednesday, December 2nd, Wednesday, December 2nd. He was 86 years old. He passed away at his home in the Sherman Oaks section of Los Angeles, California, according to family friend Michael Roth, R-O-T-H. No cause of death was announced. Rayford Johnson was among the world's greatest athletes from 1955 through his Olympic triumph in 1960, winning a national decathlon championship in 1956 and a silver medal at the Melbourne Olympics that same year. His Olympic career included carrying the U.S. flag at the 1960 Games and lighting the torch at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum to open the 1984 Games. Rayford Johnson set world records in the decathlon 3 different times amid a fierce rivalry with UCLA teammate C.K. Yang of Taiwan and Vasily Kuznetsov of the former Soviet Union, Kuznetsov, Kuznetsov. Now, Rayford Johnson won a gold medal at the Pan American Games in 1955, the Pan American Games in 1955, while competing in just his 4th decathlon. At a welcome home meet afterward in Kingsburg, California, he set his first world record, breaking the mark of 2 Olympic champion and his childhood hero, Bob Mathias. On June 5th, 1968, Rayford Johnson was working on Robert F. Kennedy's presidential campaign, brother John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy's presidential campaign, when the Democratic candidate was shot in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California. Rayford Johnson joined former NFL star Rosie Greer and journalist George Plimpton in apprehending Sirhan Sirhan moments after he shot Robert F. Kennedy, who died the next day. Robert F. Kennedy's niece, Maria Shriver, who used to be married to Arnold Schwarzenegger, said by phone, quote, "I knew he did everything he could to take care of Uncle Bobby at his most vulnerable moment. His devotion to Uncle Bobby was pure and real. He had protected his friend. Even after Uncle Bobby's death, he stayed close," end quote. Now, Rayford Johnson later called the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, quote, "one of the most devastating moments in my life," end quote. He was born Raefer Louis Johnson on August 18, 1934 in Hillsboro, Texas. He moved to California in 1945 with his family, including his brother Jim, who was a future NFL Hall of Fame inductee. Although some sources cite Rayford Johnson's birth year as 1935, the family has said that is incorrect. They eventually settled in Kingsburg near Fresno, California, in the San Joaquin Valley. It was less than 25 miles from Tulare, the hometown of Mathias, who would win the decathlon at the 1948 and 1952 Olympics and prove an early inspiration to Rayford Johnson. Rayford Johnson was a standout student and played football, basketball, baseball, and track and field at Kingsburg Joint Union High School. At 6'3" and 200 plus pounds, he looked more like a linebacker than a track and field athlete. During his junior year of high school, Johnson's coach took him to Tulare to watch Mathias compete in a decathlon and experience Rayford Johnson Rayford Johnson later said spurred him to take up the grueling 10-event sport. As a freshman at UCLA, where he received academic and athletic scholarships, Rayford Johnson won gold at the 1955 Pan Am Games, and set a world record of 7,985 points. After winning the National Decathlon Championship in 1956, Johnson was the favorite for the Olympics in Melbourne, Australia, but pulled a stomach muscle and strained a knee while training. He was forced to withdraw from the long jump, for which he had also qualified, but tried to gut out the decathlon. Johnson's teammate, Milt Campbell, a virtual unknown, gave the performance of his life, finishing with 7,937 points to win gold, 350 points ahead of Raefer Johnson. It was the last time Johnson would ever come in second. Raefer Johnson, Yang, and Kuznetsov had their way with the record books between the 1956 and 1960 Olympics. Kuznetsov, a two-time Olympic bronze medalist, who the Soviets called their, quote, man of steel. Their man of steel broke Rayford Johnson's world record in May 1958 with 8,016 points. Later that year, at a U.S.-Soviet dual meet in Moscow, Rayford Johnson beat Kuznetsov by 405 points and reclaimed the world record with 8,302 points. Johnson won over the Soviet audience with his gutsy performance in front of what had been a hostile crowd. A car accident and subsequent back injury kept Rayford Johnson out of competition during 1959, but he was healthy again for the 1960 Olympics. Yang was his primary competition in Rome. Yang won 6 of the first 9 events, but Rayford Johnson led by 66 points going into the 1,500 meter race, the decathlon's final event. Johnson had to finish within 10 seconds of Yang, which was no small feat, as Yang was much stronger running at distance than Johnson. Johnson finished just 1.2 seconds and 6 yards behind Yang to win the gold medal. Yang earned silver and Kuznetsov took bronze. At UCLA, Raefer Johnson played basketball for Coach John Wooden, Wooden, becoming a starter on the 1958-59 team. In 1958, he was elected student body president, the third African-American student to hold the office of student body president in the school history. Quote, he stood for what he believed in, and he did it in a very classy way, with grace and dignity, end quote, Olympic champion swimmer Janet Evans said by phone. Evans last saw Raefer Johnson, who attended her 2004 wedding, at a luncheon in his honor in May 2019. She said, we were all there to vet him, and he just didn't want to be in the spotlight. That was one of the things I loved about him. He did not want credit. Now, Raefer Johnson retired from competition after the Rome Olympics. He began acting in movies, including appearances in Wild in the Country with Elvis Presley, None But the Brave with Frank Sinatra, and the 1989 James Bond film License to Kill. He worked briefly as a TV sportscaster before becoming a vice president at Continental Telephone in 1971. In 1984, Raefer Johnson lit the Olympic flame for the Los Angeles Games. He took the torch from Gina Hemphill, granddaughter of Olympic great Jesse Owens, who ran it into the Coliseum. Check out the rest of this article here from blackamericaweb.com about Raefer Johnson, 1960 Olympic decathlon champion, who passed away at age 86 on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. And we posted that also at our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. All right, African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. And we create a 30-second to 60-second video commercial for you at no additional charge. You can email us a script or bullet points. We have a special promotion going on right now for a few more days. We also create an audio commercial for you as well. And when we rebroadcast these shows on our social media platforms, people will see your video commercial. When they listen to the audio podcast of these shows, they'll hear your audio commercial. Now, the Temple of Regeneration is holding a conference and training taking place. Is running from Thursday, December 3rd through Sunday, December 6th. This is taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Ralph David Abernathy West End, 1057 Ralph David Abernathy West End in Atlanta, Georgia, at the I Am Ascension Temple of Love. But they will have live streaming of the lectures also, so you can watch around the world. Saturday, December 5th is 12 noon to 4 p.m. Saturday, December 5th, 2020, 12 noon to 4 p.m. They'll have a lecture and a number of different services that they're offering. And then Sunday, December 6th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., all services will be offered. You'll be able to learn the tools that you need to properly assess your state of health, revitalize your cells with herbs, elixirs, and energy medicine, detoxify your total body, clear and revitalize your mind, be equipped with the ancient wisdom that will change your life. Learn about essential oils, crystals, and color therapies for increasing your vitality, start a new career assisting others with iridology. Okay. And they're going to have lectures, the live streaming of many of these lectures. If you can go in person, you need to call to reserve limited space for appointments. Visit their website, templeofregeneration.com, templeofregeneration.com for more information. Also, you can call 888-845-2743, 888-845-2743 for more information. But visit the website, templeofregeneration.com, and let them know you found out about this from the African History Network also, okay? All right. African American business owners, post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay, let's continue here. When we a brief update here on coronavirus. U.S. again breaks daily coronavirus records for deaths, new cases, and hospitalizations. The U.S. has shattered records set just the day before for coronavirus deaths, new cases, and hospitalizations. On Thursday, the U.S. reported over 2,082 coronavirus deaths, and that was Thursday, December 3rd, and 219,394 new cases, according to a tally from NBC News. Hospitalizations also set a new record with 100,667 across the country, according to the COVID-19 Tracking Project. Since the start of the pandemic, the U.S. has recorded more than 14.2 million cases and more than 277,000 deaths, according to the latest tally from NBC News. Also, check out the live updates from the Washington Post as well. They have really good updates and really good information dealing with coronavirus at WashingtonPost.com. Now, with the virus surging out of control, the CDC on Friday, December 4th, updated its recommendation urging universal face mask use at all times indoors, except within the home, except within the home. And there is stunning new information from the CDC about how the virus disproportionately impacts communities of color. Even though many of us know about that. But early on, now isn't it interesting? Early on, you had all these people, all these conspiracy theorists, all these people, the PhDs, all this stuff saying coronavirus, it doesn't kill black people, it's not hitting us. That was early on. Now it's disproportionately hitting us. Okay, where are some of those people now? I just find it very interesting. Early on, you had people putting all this stuff out, and then come to find out it was wrong. Imagine that. The agency, the CDC, quietly updated its data late last month, November, showing that adjusted for age, COVID-19 is nearly 3 times as deadly for African Americans and Hispanic Americans compared to white Americans. Okay, so check this out from NBC News. We'll post some links to some of the articles there. U.S. again breaks daily coronavirus records for deaths, new cases, hospitalizations. All right. How's everybody doing? Okay, so let's see here. And let me look at the updates here quickly from the Washington Post, see if there's anything that I missed. We'll talk about the job numbers on Sunday night show. The U.S. economy added only 245,000 jobs in November. A lot of that was people going back to work and not new jobs being created. The slowest month of growth since the recovery began. Let's see. And then, okay, U.S. beats its infection record for the 3rd day in a row. And then we see for Friday, December 4th, U.S. had nearly 230,000 new cases nationwide. We haven't seen the full impact of 3+ million people traveling through TSA Thanksgiving weekend. We haven't seen the full impact of that yet. That's going to be devastating. As we go into Christmas, we're going to have a record number of deaths taking place each day due to coronavirus. Because we've had 25, 26 straight days of 100,000 new cases or more. We haven't seen the full impact of what took place from people traveling through TSA for Thanksgiving and then going to people's homes for Thanksgiving and things like that. Then we're going to, in a few weeks, we'll be dealing with Christmas and the same thing all over again. Okay, so check out the updates from the Washington Post also. All right, and lastly here on our Thursday show, we talked a little bit about Fred Hampton, the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, December 4th, 1969. BlackAmericaWeb.com has an article dealing with this, remembering the politics of Fred Hampton's assassination by Chicago police. Remembering the politics of Fred Hampton's assassination by Chicago police. And I'm going to put blackden.com also has a good article dealing with Fred Hampton as well. And we've posted that article a number of times also from blackden.com. But Fred Hampton, one of the major figures in the original Black Panther Party that rose to prominence during the civil rights era in the 1960s, was assassinated on December 4th, 1969. Thursday marks the 51st year since he was killed by police, and an example of the politics of law enforcement using unnecessary force against African-American men, an unfortunate trend that has lingered for centuries in America and continues to thrive in 2020. Now, Fred Hampton was only 21 years old at the time of his death, but his accomplishments and contributions to empowering African-Americans have lasted for decades. But it was because of those very advances that united minorities, African Americans, non-white people, in opposition to the police state in which many of them lived, that ended up getting him killed. Law enforcement began heavy surveillance of him before the fateful police raid. In Peoria, Illinois, where he died and other Black Panther members were injured. Okay, let's see. Let me pull up this other article here also. So Fred Hampton was chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, and Mark Clark, a 22-year-old Peoria, Illinois Black Panther Party leader. They were both murdered by Chicago police officers working with the Cook County State's attorney. The Cook County State's attorney at the time of the attack. Hampton and Clark were not inciting violence, nor were they standing off with police. Conversely, they were both asleep inside the Chicago home. And so there was an African-American informant that the authorities used to drug them, spike their drink, whatever they were drinking, to drug them, to knock them out, okay, so they could be killed. Driven by Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan, Hanrahan, the deadly raid of the local Black Panther Party chapter, which left 4 other Black Panther Party members severely injured, was one of multiple attempts to attack the Black Panther Party amid COINTELPRO's mission, the counterintelligence program, which starts basically August 1967. Amid COINTELPRO's mission to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalist hate-type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, end quote, as written in an FBI document, okay? The mission of the counterintelligence program was to, quote, expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalist hate-type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, end quote, as written in an FBI document. We know J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI and the head of the counterintelligence program. Though the FBI is said to not have been responsible, a federal grand jury did indicate the Bureau played a notable role in events leading up to the assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. Specifically, FBI informant William O'Neill, third in command of the Chicago Panthers, supplied Cook County State's Attorney Edward Hanrahan with information to aid in planning the attack from the attack by the authorities on the Black Panthers. The families of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, along with the 7 survivors, filed a $47.7 million damage suit. Along with being chairman of the Black Panther Party Illinois chapter, Fred Hampton was known as a charismatic leader. Some of his other accomplishments include organizing a student chapter of the NAACP in Maywood, Illinois. Fred Hampton also brought together poor African Americans, poor whites, and Puerto Ricans as part of the Rainbow Coalition, and inspired peace among several gangs in rivalry with one another. So Fred Hampton, and I've seen there's a good documentary dealing with Fred Hampton. He had the ability to speak and organize and galvanize poor white people and speak to their needs, speak to African Americans, speak to Latinos, Puerto Ricans, things like this, and galvanize them and show them how they were basically all being exploited by the same people. Now, on the anniversary of Fred Hampton's death, we remember the life of an inspiring revolutionary, as well as the others lost on that date 51 years ago. Check out this article from blackamericaweb.com, remembering the politics of Fred Hampton. Remembering the politics of Fred Hampton's assassination by Chicago police. Also, newsone.com has an article dealing with quotes by Fred Hampton also. We posted that article on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network also. So you can check that out as well. And check that out at newsone.com, newsone.com. Let me take a look here. How's everybody doing? All right, everybody, share this broadcasting and social media platforms. Yeah, Fred Hampton's most political and revolutionary quotes. Fred Hampton's most political and revolutionary quotes from December 4th, 2020 by Bruce Wright. And you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution. You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution. That's one of the quotes from Fred Hampton. Okay, so check this out also. All right. Okay, so be sure to follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live as well, okay? Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Subscribe there. You can donate to the African History Network also. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. All that helps support the African History Network, helps us keep broadcasting, doing the show 6 days a week. Broadcasting on the air helps us stay on the air, pay the bills, finance the research, etc. African American business owners, post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice.com. And who's this? Kale Johnson or Kelly Johnson said, thanks for your work. Okay, thank you. And we will, so email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Post name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. We have a current promotion running for a few more days. We'll get you up and running, usually in 1 to 2 days. And we will be back Sunday night as well, okay? And we're on 2 hours on Sunday night on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. Sundays 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sundays 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, look, hey, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.